Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the season finale, season 3, episode 7 of Hard Things. I'm very excited to say as well, I'll get into this a little bit later, but that will be the last time that I will be naming the episode by season and episode. From now on, it's just going to be, next episode's going to be episode 22, and we're just going to roll with it. So very excited to be moving on. And with that in mind, I want to put a pin in, wrap a bow, a ribbon on the theme of this season and kind of the format. I've been doing this for the last, I guess, 21 weeks. And that theme is, again, the kind of season episode format and trying to kind of plan episodes around a general theme relating to Kundalini yoga, different health concepts in the body and ideas, emotional ideas, clinical psychology ideas, you name it. If you've been listening, you kind of understand what I'm trying to say. And I really liked what I put out. I'm proud of it. It's something that I wanted to express, and now it's kind of cemented and out there. And I think what I've been feeling the last few weeks, this has just been one big therapy session for me. And I know I've said that before, but I've felt this existential dread of like, what am I going to do moving forward? I was waiting for that creative impulse, that instinct to tell me, like, hey, what am I supposed to do? What is season 4 going to be? Am I going to do it this way forever? And just kind of asking that question to myself and giving myself the space to respond. And I think that's really common with men in today's world, is everything moves at such lightning speeds, but men and our intellect can be sharp, we can be quick-witted, but our emotions are typically way slower. This is something I've noticed for a long time, but I've actually observed more keenly and deeply recently. I think it's one of the main reasons why there is a quote-unquote battle of the sexes, because I think women oftentimes are the opposite. So they're intelligent, but their intelligence works a little bit slower, and also is kind of more connected with an intuition that's really strong. And then their emotions, though, process hyper fast. Like they're kind of in it and over it, in the matter of a couple of days. In a kind of typical scenario, whereas a guy might go 3 months without feeling anything, and then 3 months later, all of a sudden it hits him. So I think with all the heaviness that you've maybe heard me talk about in this podcast, I think it was all weighing on me pretty heavily over this last month. And really the only way out of it is through it. I'm kind of glad that I talked myself through it. I worked myself through it through school. And as a result, really good things are happening in life. And this just seems like a good time to transition into a new format and kind of a new way of doing things. So I guess maybe I'll give a little bit of a life update first before we come back into kind of wrapping up that button. But I did recently kind of get in touch. July 4th, I did a workout at a CrossFit gym, and I knew that I was going to need some work. Being in school, it's nice to have a little extra spending money. We take out student loans for different things. But my savings, I actually paid for a good portion of school in cash, kind of up front. And my savings was dwindling. I was kind of feeling the pressure of that. And now, loans for this next trimester are forthcoming. But like I said, I like to have a little spending money. So the owner of that gym actually approached me to coach for their gym. So I went through a process where kind of shadowed them, coached a few classes myself, just to kind of show them, like, hey, I used to do this full time. For any of those of you who didn't know, I did coach CrossFit full time at one point for about 2 to 3 years, right leading up to COVID. So that was all well and good. My level 2 certification expired. Reached out to CrossFit. They extended it for 6 months so I could kind of figure out what I want to do. If I want to renew that, go to a level 3 option, or whatever, and just see, you know, is this coaching thing something I want to do while I'm in school, kind of long term. You know, I go through this next trimester and it's not working out with my study schedule, or, you know, school starts kind of falling by the wayside, then I'll change it up. So that's been really cool. I'm actually going to the gym right after I record this episode to go coach 4 classes in a row. It's a Thursday evenings, typically a little bit lighter of a workout. So it's been cool to get to know the gym members there, and good to have another community. So I kind of have the community of students, and then now also the folks at this gym and a couple other groups that I've met since I've moved to Dallas. And it's a lot of fun. And speaking of school, final exams are next week. So all assignments, aside from finals, finished yesterday. I had 2 practicals that I finished, and it's going really well. I have all A's and B's. I'm posed to kind of keep that. Finals aren't worth more than 15% in most cases. So just a little bit of studying over the weekend and next week, and should be able to close it out strong. A week from today, I will be all done. This next Thursday will be kind of a bit of a transition period. So from that point, I'll have about 17, 18 days off from school, which is just a beautiful thing to hear and say. I'm very excited. I have a trip planned going to Austin to meet up with some folks and just hang out in the sun, go to Barton Creek, Barton Springs, and get my lounge on. So very excited there. So a lot of things shifting and changing, and again, I think all of that, the passing emotion that I was feeling, just processing that through the course of this last trimester and through these episodes. I think what I've learned is these podcasts are a great outlet, but now I want to turn it into something functional, maybe more functional and useful, maybe a little less selfish. If anyone's listening and they're just listening to me vent and rant, maybe it could be helpful, but also I think it's important to make it even more relatable. Like, I think it's already slightly relatable, but so I'm going to be working on that. And again, next week I'll be all done with finals, and I think the new day that I'm going to post these episodes is going to be Thursdays. So I realized too, I kept missing the deadline of Tuesday, and just realizing that I'm a couple days late because that's when I can do it typically. My schedule might change here in about a month or so, but I think Thursday is a good day to do it as well, and Thursday it is. So today is Thursday, August 8th, and again, it is the season 3 finale, and last time I'll be using seasons. So I'm going to hop into the topic for today and then use it as a way to pivot into my new format. I think we're going to test this out. So we've gone through all the Infinity Stones from the MCU. We've gone through all the chakras. The very last one today is the one at the root. Literally, it's the root chakra, the base of your spine, even below the sacral chakra. For lack of a better term, kind of the taint, the beehole, for lack of a better term. And this is really the seat of that raw survival instinct. And I think that what comes along with this also is kind of the fear of death. Like, the opposite of life is death. So this swirling fear of death mixed with this just like absolute passion for life, to thrive, to procreate, to make a name for yourself, to find shelter, kind of the bottom of that Maslow's hierarchy of needs, for anyone who's familiar with that. And to relate that to the MCU, it is the Reality Stone. This is probably the first time I noticed the correlation between the chakras and the Infinity Stones from Marvel is this. So Reality Stone and the root chakra just kind of go hand in hand if you really think about it. And one of the things that Thanos, the villain, says in the Infinity War movies is reality is often disappointing, but then once he finds the stone, he can make it whatever he wants. And I think this is a really big struggle for a lot. I think a lot of people are really stuck in this root chakra, this kind of duality between good and evil. And saying good and evil, a lot of people think, good is good, evil is bad, but they need each other to survive. If you look in nature, there's so many different dualities that oppose each other, and if those natural forces are equal, everything's in balance. So we can look at all the different tragedies of the world and things that happen to us. Like I said, these last couple months have been challenging for me, with everything that's been happening and kind of the life shift. But without the bad, there will be no good. There's no way to measure the good things that happen. If everything was just good, we kind of get into this world where you're bored. You're never challenged. And this fear that we have of being wrong, of failing, oftentimes can lead you into anxiety and depression, because without any resistance, we just don't have anything to measure ourselves against. We don't have anything to strive for. So my approach has been just to accept the negativities of life when they do arise, and not just blindly accept. Like I mean accept in the way that obviously you have to honor that something happened, and regardless of your feelings about it, if something happened, that's just the facts. Now, you can't change it. It's in the past. But what you can do is change your current approach in the present, and really doing so without fear of future failure or future negativity. You just have to operate in a specific way and do your best. And then as you learn and you fail and you find out that what you're doing is not working, then you just adjust. And I know it sounds kind of, it's a lot easier said than done. I'll say that for sure. I say this now sounding decently confident, but when faced with the decision and you're emotional and it's happening now in the moment, and men are slow at processing emotions, it could be a real challenge. So my goal is to continue to be a beacon for just being honest and saying, like, when I fail, how I felt, and then also how it benefited me. And I can tell you all my failures and everything that led me to this point are going to be worth it, because I'm now kind of starting to see the benefits of that. And I just know the path I'm on and what is going to be kind of for me in the future. So very, very exciting, but also honoring, everything that's happened. So, with all that in mind, I don't want to spend too much time on the chakras and the MCU. I think it's good to mention. I think even just making the associations I've had in this season, I hope it just spurred some thoughts, maybe made some connections. Really the overarching theme, to kind of sum it all up, is human wisdom is human wisdom, no matter what form it comes in. Could be a kid telling you something, could be an elderly person telling you something. Everyone could potentially have something to teach you. and that's from all parts of the world, no matter what religion, color, sex, you name it. And a good example of that is the Olympics. It's happening right now, even though we disagree on so much, and even so much that's involved with the Olympics as a human race. There's also a lot that we can agree on and come together on. And again, it's like you need those opposing forces to measure yourself. But I think my one wish is to improve the way that we compete, the way that we measure ourselves in the future. There's a way to do it that kind of honors nature, honors the way of things. And ultimately, when it comes down to it, I think equality really is that everyone is subject to reality the way that reality actually is, independent of any thought or thinker. And when people think equality, they think of so many different things, like financial equality or whatever it may be. And even I can tell you, all people are not born and created equal. There's folks out there with disabilities that will tell you, I wasn't born or created equal, but that person should be treated well. They should be afforded opportunities that they're suited for, that suit them ultimately. If they can accept their circumstances and find opportunities that suit them and live a peaceful life, and also strive to be their best, I think that's really what we're talking about. And the same goes for anyone. Even me myself. There's a couple examples, and this is actually going to parlay well into my topic that I want to go over, kind of getting into the new format. But I think a lot of suffering in life comes from when we try too hard to do something that's not for us. And what I mean by that is, when I was in high school, school came very easily to me. High school football, and some of the other sports I played, like baseball, came really easily to me. Wrestling was a little bit tougher. I was good at it, but I wasn't immediately the best. So that frustrated me. But high school football ultimately came very easily to me. And I did it with joy, aside from, some of the relational challenges I had with teammates. I really enjoyed my high school football experience. And where I got into trouble was, obviously in high school football, I took a couple hits to the head, some concussions I had that actually went undiagnosed because it wasn't really a thing back then unless you got knocked out. So school, something that came easily to me that I could thrive at, ended up being diminished by my participation in athletics. And what I ended up doing was turning that up to 100 by going to Harvard, where the football and the school competition was basically maximized. And the competition there is not all healthy competition. You definitely see some of the dark side of what the Ivy League is. It is a machine for all of its great qualities and all of the world-class things that it produces. There is a dark side, and I kind of got chewed up and spit out because of my diminished thought capacity from the hits to the head, and then ultimately jumping into the deep end with college football. I think college football is something that maybe a lower level, like a Division III, Division II, or even just a different school, different league, or not trying to do an Ivy League education while playing football. I think that was just drinking from the fire hose, and it's something I did, and ultimately I did measure. I used that challenge to measure myself, and what I found was I didn't like the results. I said, hey, this probably wasn't for me, and if anything, the school was for me, but the football wasn't. The football was definitely outside of my ability, and it was a huge area of struggle. I would say the same is true for what I got into next. So I got into CrossFit, And if you know anything about CrossFit, the champions are all about 5'8", 170, 180. You're talking Rich Froning, Matt Frazier. The guys since then may have varied a little bit in size, but there is a type. And right now, as I stand here, I'm about 6'2", 6'1", 255. I've always just been, a little bit chubby ever since I was about 14 years old, which was the first concussion I had. So correlation there maybe. But yeah, definitely not 170 and taller than 6 foot. It's just tough to compete at all the gymnastics things, the body weight movements, the running, all that stuff you have to do as a bigger guy. You don't have it. So I can work twice as hard as someone and get 75% as far. And it's not to say that I shouldn't do CrossFit for fitness and health, but is it really what you want to be competing at? No. So I got into Olympic weightlifting, and the story was a little bit happier. But now even Olympic weightlifting has gotten so much more competitive. I'm 33. A couple of the best lifters in the world are basically early 20s, late teens. So just I found that sport a little bit past my time. And, it sucks to say, I'm probably as good as I'll ever be at weightlifting. I've kind of hit the top. I might hit maybe a couple more PRs in my life because I don't give up that easily. But to really compete at the highest level, I would have to work so hard. And it's just not something that anyone really has time or money for, especially if you don't already have that money. If you're like me, you're, kind of paying your own way through school. It's just not going to happen. So those are our harsh realities that we all have to deal with. And there's things that we want to do, and they're just, at the end of the day, exceed our ability. The beautiful thing about the time and place that we're born is you can do whatever you want. I don't have to do CrossFit. I don't have to do Olympic weightlifting. I never had to play college football. To be honest, you get into Harvard and with the football team the way that I did, I don't know that I would have got in just as a student alone, but I could have showed up. We had teammates our first year. They showed up and just stopped coming to practice and just kept going to school. And there was really nothing you could do. They were enrolled at Harvard. They already had their financial aid, which didn't come from the athletic department. And there was no stakes. I'll say if anything about Harvard is, once I got there and I was playing football, I was never worried about losing my scholarship. It was guaranteed to me no matter what I did athletically. So that was really something nice about it that I didn't know could have been a negative factor in my experience. So, but to bring it back to the main point is you don't have to do these things. There's certain things you have to do. You have to earn a living, but you can choose the way you do it. And if you're smart, you might work a job that you hate for a couple of years to get into something like chiropractic, where I'm going to love it and I'm going to be able to do it for 30, 40 years, pretty much never have to retire if I don't want to, as long as I take care of myself. And that's a beautiful thing. And it's something that I had to fight and struggle for, but it was worth fighting and struggling for because now it's not a struggle. It's something I wake up to do school every day, and I'm really enjoying it. And you don't need this abundance of motivation. The hard work part, it doesn't solve everything. It doesn't solve your ability. But if you match your hard work up with your ability, there's nothing that can stop you. So I think a lot of people get tripped up in what's not for them. And ultimately, there's been times where I felt sorry for myself because it didn't go the way that I wanted, or my ability wasn't, my potential felt like it was bigger than it ended up being. Sometimes you go down that road and you have to kind of find out what your potential is. You don't really know. And then once you find out, it is a harsh truth. But it doesn't mean you can't enjoy it. So weightlifting is something I enjoy and I'm going to do, just maybe not as competitively as I wanted to originally. Paris Olympics, obviously far out of reach. It's happening right now. We got our first bronze medal in 40 years. and it wasn't me, and it's not going to be me. The LA Olympics is going to be fun to watch, and I hope to be able to go, to be able to afford that. Probably not, since it's in LA, but by then I'll be a chiropractor with a shit ton of loans, so I'll probably be working my ass off. Who knows? Maybe I'll be lucky enough to be able to adjust some athletes or something. But I digress. But so sticking with the topic of things that aren't for us. Now I want to get into kind of the new format. We really put the old format to bed, and now I think I'm being called to kind of talk about real life stories. So it's going to transition away, like I said, from selfishly kind of talking about myself. I'll use myself and stories from me to kind of relate to real life and to others, but it won't be the main thing. I think so far I've been talking a lot about myself, my experience, and so now it's going to shift. This morning I had lab around 8 a.m. and at the same time the CrossFit Games had an event scheduled that was postponed and later canceled, and then all of the events today are canceled. And they're actually, CrossFit Games moved from Madison, Wisconsin in previous years down here to Fort Worth, so about 30 minutes west of me. And sadly, there's a Serbian athlete. And traditionally, if you know anything about CrossFit, the international athletes sometimes have trouble getting visas and getting over to the U.S. to compete. So I was very happy to know this gentleman had made it. I saw a lot more international folks competing than really ever before. And in the gym leading up to today, the last 2 weeks, there's been international folks training in the gym. And they come through, they're very polite, train really hard, and keep it moving. So Lazar Dukic, I believe is how you say his name. He was on a swim event this morning. The CrossFit Games are traditionally programmed by a guy named Dave Castro, who's former Navy SEAL. A lot of swimming incorporated. Swimming is obviously great for fitness. But I've always thought this in the past, especially early on, the games were kind of less televised and there was less money involved. But swimming also can be dangerous, especially these distances and the amount of stress you put the body under, the amount of training. It is possible for people to be, partially vulnerable. So Lazar Dukic, it pains me to say, I believe he did pass away on the swim event earlier this morning. Initial reports are that he drowned in the last 100 meters. And this is someone who competes, pushes himself all out, and I just thought to myself immediately, memento mori. Any moment could be our last. I could hop in the car on my way to the gym and, get in an accident, and, really don't want that to happen, but I know it's possible. I know at the end of the day, the people that I love and that love me know that that's the case, and I'd be able to go just knowing that I guess my time here was done. I feel pretty at peace with it, and I hope that Mr. Dukic did as well, because he was his life was tragically cut short this morning. And there's something about CrossFit. So I've been coaching and doing CrossFit for, basically since 2012, so about 12 years. And there is this element of danger to it. I think is pretty attractive to a lot of folks. Adrenaline junkies in a way. The people that do CrossFit, in my experience, do tend to have that kind of addiction gene in them. And get addicted to the danger of it. They're addicted to how people look. The people in the gym, they're fucking yoked, and you like having like hot friends, I guess. And the kind of runner's high feeling that gets turned up to 10 when you're doing like 5-minute short metcons that just absolutely, fill you up with lactic acid and make you it makes you feel like you're dying, but then you kind of come back from the brink. In the same way, maybe someone would describe sex as a tiny death. It is like Arnold used to say, pumping and in the gym is like pumping at home, and I feel like I'm coming in the gym, and how lucky am I? And it's that whole thing. And you see these people maybe at points where overweight, kind of addicted to food or booze or other things, and they come in the gym and they get addicted to the gym. They replace that addiction with the gym. And when someone's competing again at the highest level and they, train so hard to get to this kind of peak of the mountain, and you basically you become vulnerable. And CrossFit in a way has always kind of exposed this vulnerability. If you remember, so the founder himself, he is pretty genius in the way that he combined these exercises and movements and made the number schemes. But he also was kind of a creep. He liked seeing, hot chicks with big muscles and tiny shorts, and that was kind of his thing. He named workouts after girls. He gives them the name of girls, and I think the quote from him was, well, I named it after women because nothing will put you on your back, out of breath, sweaty, puffing for air like a woman. And you just kind of remember the roots of CrossFit. Those are the gnarly, dirty roots that no one really wants to talk about. We want to package it as this healthy thing. It's going to get you fit. And like with anything, like with my football experience, football is a beautiful thing. You build camaraderie with a group of boys and men that you go win a championship, and you feel like, again, it's like the ultimate way to like test yourself. And it's really a lot of fun and very fulfilling. It brought me so many relationships that, I'll always be able to come back to. And CrossFit's the same. You go to the gym, you suffer together, you build a community, and you lose some weight, you get healthy. There's so many positives for so many people, but the dark side of it that we don't talk about for football, the concussions, the injuries, the people that go to the NFL and make all that money, they get a bunch of women pregnant, then they're broke and they're behind on their payment. It sets so many people up for this incredible fall as well if you don't find balance. And so with CrossFit, the balance is really important, and it's something I feel like as a coach I can bring to this gym that I'm coaching at now. Having all this experience and perspective, I can kind of pull people back when I see them starting to go too far. So this really pains me to see that this gentleman drowned in a way, sort of the toxic culture in one way or another. Either they couldn't afford more lifeguards. Apparently, this is it also. So one thing you're always going to get on this show is a impartial view of things. So I'm just telling you the exact things I saw, when I saw them, how I saw them. So a friend of mine sent me something on Twitter where they said a spectator tried to jump in and save this gentleman and was waved off by a lifeguard on a paddleboard. So I don't know how many lifeguards with paddleboards there were. I don't know what their instructions were in terms of helping an athlete. I think competition-wise, they're for sure, if you touch one of those paddleboards, you should get docked some points, or maybe not be able to, maybe your race is just over, you get time capped or whatever. But at any point, if you feel like you're unsafe, you should be able to hop on this paddleboard and get to safety. So to hear that potentially a spectator tried to jump in and save someone and was stopped by a lifeguard, that's way too far. And there's been instances where CrossFit has gone way too far. And it pains me to see that this kind of thing is what it takes. I think in life, humans fuck around and find out, they go too far, and we have these tragedies like this that are really genuinely easily avoidable. Like, I can tell you, athlete safety should be number one on everything. And there's so many other ways in CrossFit. Like, if you do, 300 air squats, you can get rhabdomyolysis, which is basically your muscle cells break down rapidly. And your pee looks like Coca-Cola. And you get really, really sick. It's really bad for your liver and your kidneys and like basically everything. And it can kill you. So there's ways people go to the gym, they drink too much water, they die. They get heat stroke and pass out, especially here in Dallas. It's been 100 degrees lately. So I'm always looking out for people who are taking my class, and thankfully everyone in my class is super fit, super healthy. And I really, again, when I'm coaching, I actually am worried more about safety than performance for several reasons, but really just because I try to be a decent human, and I guess eventually I'll take an oath that says do no harm. So I can't explain to you enough like how much this doesn't surprise me when it comes to CrossFit, and how much that disappoints me that that's the case, because it is so avoidable and controllable. You know, that again, the dark side of life needs to exist for the light side to be recognizable. But do we have to go as far as death to realize that we're doing something wrong? I don't think so. Because the CrossFit Games is not worth losing your life over. I can tell you that right now. And again, like, high school and college football is not worth the 10 years of suffering that I went through with reduced cognition. And it's not to say that I'm against football. I love football. I wish someone taught me the correct technique early on when I was a 14-year-old going against 18-year-olds. But I chose to be there, and I love the sport of football. So this isn't to say the CrossFit Games should go away. They shouldn't. The CrossFit Games, I think, are great. But we got to be cognizant of the safety of people. And yeah, you know, you got to let people run the race. But if someone's fucking drowning, let them on the paddleboard. Like, for fuck's sake. Just not today. It's just, and like, that's where we get as a society with competition, is just like, you just, as billionaires, you know, if you become a billionaire, I think that's sweet. I think it's so cool. I think billionaires should exist. But when you got 13 billion, like, do you need 13? What about 12? Give away $1 billion and solve a problem. You know, and really not just give it away, but like literally maybe invest your effort into solving a real problem. And people talk shit about Elon Musk, but I think he does that at times. Not to get off track. So if there's anything I can say, I want to bring it back to the, you know, CrossFit Level 1. One of the main things they teach you is the sickness, wellness, and fitness continuum. So a lot of times people are sick and they're well. You know, the line between that can be pretty slim, you know. And most people, you know, you go up a flight of stairs and kind of like twist your ankle, you know, you're kind of one step away from reduced health in that way. And on that continuum, fitness kind of going beyond wellness is like this hyper wellness. Like, you're so fit that like a sprained ankle is not going to slow you down. Is really great as a concept. I think it gives people something to strive for. I know so many people that just kind of accept, you know, back pain, accept aging for what it is. You'd be so surprised what strength training once a week and a couple of times a week sauna or walking or like just getting your heart rate up a little bit for 30 minutes a couple of times a week. Like, you don't have to live this like reduced lifestyle. And I can talk all day about maybe that is the subtle way to say, like, I don't want any more responsibility. Sometimes people shrink their life because it feels safe for them. They want to, you know, close it down, and responsibility like really is a tough thing. You know, to step up and take responsibility for some hard work that needs to be done is a lot. So I don't necessarily blame everyone for maybe wanting to shrink a little bit. But I think where we see society failing right now is where those people are shrinking more often than not. And everyone deserves a break. But when your break goes on for years and you kind of watch as other people struggle to solve real problems that we have the capability of solving, that to me is just unforgivable. And something that I always try to motivate that person out of. Not because I dislike them, but because I want them to join. I think if we all do it together, then the load becomes lighter and it becomes easy to solve problems because we're doing it together. Everyone's effort added together is kind of exponential. It's not a factor of one. But I will say that sickness, wellness, fitness continuum, pushing yourself to the point, it's good to know where you measure up. So a good example to end on is, I went and played college football. I was pretty average to below average as a football player and ended an Ivy League champion. I really accepted my role. And I got to the point where I played, 20 plays a game on defensive line, and it was a lot of fun. Again, won a championship, got to be a part of something. And that was the kind of peak of my ability. I found how far I could go and then was glad to give it up because I kind of knew the truth. I found the truth, accepted it, knew it. If I was the kind of person that didn't accept that, maybe tried to play semi-pro, maybe tried to, try out for NFL teams, like just get all kinds of attention, and like I would have worked really, really hard to get like a little crumb of attention in professional football. And who knows, maybe I could have played, but I shouldn't be. I didn't have that ability. And, at a certain point, the fitness, it's not a continuum. I think it's more of a circle. I think at the end of the day, the fitness can come back around it becomes a sickness. So part of what I want to do with this show is to help people understand where that line is. Help you draw a line in the sand for yourself and to say like, hey, this is kind of base level wellness, and this is kind of my ceiling as far as I can go in terms of fitness. And then how do you just stay right in between there, and have balance? Like if you want to do, say, a weightlifting competition, maybe you get a little bit closer to coming back around to sickness. You get a little knee tendonitis. You got some problems. If you just go slow and you go consistent, you can do that competition and then take some time off and go back to doing some cardio, doing a CrossFit class, doing whatever you want, yoga. It's all good. But just having maybe an impartial third party to talk about these things. And I do want to get into coaching, even beyond coaching in person. I want to coach outside of that to help people understand their limits, accept their limits, and maybe even push them a little bit. I think just that honest feedback is something people are missing. And to be honest, it's something people don't really want to pay for. A lot of people like coaches that can just kind of fluff them up and make them feel good. And I will not be that. So I don't expect business to be booming, but for those few who do want that extremely honest and accurate feedback, and I think at this point I've learned so much about fitness that it's pretty easy to tell when too far, enough is enough. And we don't need an example like someone passing away in the CrossFit Games to know when enough is enough. With that said, I am currently contemplating doing a weightlifting competition, and you may have heard me say knee tendonitis. I was kind of talking about myself. So Olympic weightlifting, like I said, I think I've kind of come to pretty close to the end of the road. I don't think I'm done yet, but I think if I do compete 3 weeks from now, it'll be my last meet with USA Weightlifting as a senior athlete. I do turn 35 in the eyes of them next year. So I'll be moving into the Masters division, and that's pretty much where I belong. The people in my weight class CIS, within USAW are just so far beyond I think my maximum total I could probably ever do is somewhere around 350, 360, and they're doing 370 plus. Not necessarily with ease, but regularly. And I think that's just a sign to me that I got to move on and have some fun in the Masters. So just, again, like kind of leading from the front. Not to say I'll never compete in USA weightlifting again. But it doesn't, I want to be competitive, and it doesn't really make sense to go up against people who can out-total me pretty easily. So again, competing against yourself can be a worthy goal. Competing in a division that suits you can be a worthy goal. And one great thing about Masters is I'm really just in it for the fun. There's no, like major stakes. It's not like an Olympics. So now it's, instead of being so serious, you can have some fun, and kind of have to be serious to find that ceiling again. But now I've kind of found my ceiling like I did in football, and now I can just enjoy it. So with that said, I'm going to get to that. I'm going to take care of business with these exams next week, and I'm really excited to come back with the kind of revamped Hard Things podcast starting next Thursday. I want these to be discussions, stories, news, all things that move you, maybe help you feel and see topics in a different way, and then be able to express yourself better in your community, with people you love, with yourself. So that's what I'll be developing here moving forward. I'm really excited to get to next week's episode, but for now, once again, I have to take care of business. So until next time, out.